Hey everybody, welcome to the next edition of Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast. Today, we're joined by Sudhakar Mohanraj, who is the award-winning entrepreneur and healthcare IT executive who's revolutionized the healthcare data landscape. Sudhika has founded and scales Triyam, which is a healthcare data management company, and not only earned the prestigious Best in Class award, but also landed on the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing companies in the USA. We're going to dive into all things healthcare and data today and scaling a B2B business in a relatively challenging market. I'm also joined today by a very special co-host, Vince Quinn, who's doing his first Future Fuzz podcast today. So let's get the show started. Welcome, Sudhika.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on the show. So tell us about the story behind Triyam and, where did the business start? Where does the story begin?
Starting my own company has always been a dream for me from my very first job. My first job was with a company called Ramco Systems. It's a ERP product development company that was back in India. And Ramco is like an institution to learn the basics of product. Figurable, reusable systems, basically what we now call as platform thinking. So we built it like 30 years ago. And it was a generic solution with multiple customers. And customization was not using code change, but using system configurations and settings. So when I spotted about a decade ago a white space in healthcare data archival, I realized this was like classic blue ocean strategy. There is a problem space with minimal competition, and an immense unmet need was there. So when I saw this opportunity, I built an archival product. We differentiated mainly by low cost into emerging market space, creating new demand. It was very hard to find a solution which is unique in the market, something which nobody else has done before. So in a way, I was kind of lucky to be in the right place at the right time when I started Triyam. Successfully exited it. So all business like sales, marketing, operations, customer support, and sales. I'm still an engineer. The intrinsic motivation comes from projects scalable. I mean, simplify it.
So you went out there did you start looking for the problem and build the business around it, or did you already have, a set idea in mind is that you're going to build a certain type of business?
Initially, I tried both, like looking for a problem to build around it, but we did not find anything in the beginning. So what we did was we started doing healthcare IT projects, and then we came across a customer who had a legacy server which need to be decommissioned. So they engaged us for just extracting the data out of this legacy system, which is healthcare data, so that they can decommission. So we did that just as a project for them and handed over raw data to them. But then after the project, I realized there is a market opportunity in the space of archival, because instead of giving them raw data, we could possibly host it in a SaaS application and make them utilize that as a service. So that was kind of what we came across after doing some projects.
And so how did you get the word out about that? When you have this new thing, blue ocean, like all this opportunity, how do you explain it to people of what you have to offer? How'd you get it out?
Yeah, it was very difficult. Initially, we started off with educating the market. So it was aimed at early adopters. So for this, I need to explain a little bit about that industry. So about 15 years ago, the healthcare industry in the United States started transitioning from one electronic system of medical records to another electronic medical record system. previous to that, if you go back before 15 years, hospitals were mainly moving from paper records to electronic. So when they're moving from paper to electronic, it is quite easy to archive. You just take the papers and store it in a warehouse, right? But when you're moving from one electronic system to another, the new vendor who's giving you this new EHR does not bring in all the historical data. So they bring in last 2 years of data, and then they say, okay, yeah, the remaining 18 years of your data. So we started with educating the market that simply storing old data and legacy systems and keeping it in your basement is not a good idea because it is high risk. It can people can forget how to access it. It can get hacked easily. So we were essentially doing what we call as category creation. Like we were educating the market on what is the legacy data, why it should not sit idle. So we took the go-to-market approach of blending kind of an evangelism with also telling the return on investment in modeling. Because when we transition, what we do is basically we take the historical data from the legacy system and move it into our cloud-based archive so that you can decommission the legacy system. By doing that, you save the money of maintaining the legacy system because the cost of archiving it is a fraction of what you would do otherwise in maintaining the legacy system. So that's how we were messaging it, and we didn't land on the pitch, the perfect elevator pitch on day one. We kind of iterated on it, uh, constantly testing and pivoting it. So even the words which we use today, which is archival and decommissioning legacy systems, these were not industry standard back then. So we had to kind of build a lexicon from scratch.
Yeah. And so how did you do that? I mean, is this just like analyzing conversations with people you spoke with? Because to create a whole new language and the way to explain this new concept, it's a big ask. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, so it was a lot of iterations. Like when we did the sales pitch and the presentations, some the customers and prospects understood, some they did not understand. So we went back and refined it. We also did a lot of webinars in the like educational webinars, and in that process, we got a lot of feedback from the audience, questions. So that helped us refine the pitch. And like we were not alone, there were other competitors, which initially I was unaware of, but eventually I came aware of them. And the industry itself evolved. So these words eventually, became the common pitch for all the players in this space.
Wow.
When you go out there, because it's obviously a complex sell and you've got to deal with some pretty, I'm guessing, traditional organizations dealing with something that is technically fairly sensitive, and that's data. How does that sales journey look? Do you like go and, do you call them up? Do you send them an email? Do you send them a letter? Is it word of mouth? I'm just very curious how you open those doors, because healthcare is undergoing pretty drastic revolution, especially with the influence of AI, right? But it's harder and harder to get in contact with the decision makers. Just curious to hear your story on how you managed to do it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, reaching healthcare executives, that is healthcare IT executives, is very hard. Emails were blocked, filters, and phone calls always predominantly go to voicemail. So it was very challenging. But we tried everything. We tried email marketing, we did webinars, we did phone calls. So I think what well was probably the webinars. It was some traction because it was useful for them to learn what is going on in the market. So that helped. Eventually, once we got our customers there, the word of mouth helped a lot because we were able to consistently deliver high quality products, and you know had the return on investment in doing that. So that would help.
And it's always, and probably with the content that you produced, like the webinars, you're providing, and also other information, you're providing something that's useful, right? It's something that people can really engage with and that's really interesting. I think that's where a lot of companies don't do very well, is that they don't create good content with their audience in mind, and it's not very useful, and it often gets ignored. But it sounds like you've cracked it there, that it's been useful and people engage with it, and they follow up, and then you're top of mind as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So we made it like as simple as possible. So if you look at it, as I was telling, the industry was churning. They were moving from one vendor to another in terms of software, EHR software, and typically archival was put on the back burner because their focus is on the new EHR implementation, right? So that is the live project everybody is talking about. So we had to educate them about going back to archival once you have moved to the new EHR. You should not just put the old system in the basement. So think about it. That kind of educational webinars. And it was not one good thing was it was easy to identify who are the prospects because some of these new EHR implementations were in the news, so we can easily target them and say, "Hey, you're moving to the new EHR. It's time to think about the policy system." So the industry kind of evolved over time. So initially, we had to explain what is archival, why you need it, and they kind of realized it only after moving to the new EHR, maybe even after a year or two. But nowadays, they plan it ahead. The whole industry has got to a point where when they are thinking of a new EHR changeover, they're also thinking about how to decommission the legacy system, how to take the data out of it and archive. So many of our customers now are proactive.
Wow.
Great.
So you've been able to educate all of these people, get them on board, get the message out, get all these webinars. I mean, like, how much easier, or let me ask you this then. How long did it take to feel like you had really started to get people to understand the message? When did it feel like you didn't have to explain so much and it was more people already got it and were coming to you with an understanding of what you did?
Uh, Getting into healthcare space is not easy. So we had to kind of do what you call as a land and expand strategy. So getting into large players in the market, like larger health systems, was almost impossible for a startup. So I had no choice but to start from small healthcare facilities. So the interesting thing about healthcare is the smaller facilities are far more welcoming to innovation than larger facilities. So also the sales cycle is much faster in smaller systems. Decisions are made faster than larger facilities. So I went after the critical access hospitals, like 25 bed and under, and also 50 bed and under hospitals. We also sold to other facilities like ambulatory clinics, behavioral health, home health, surgery centers. In fact, even today, I don't see many products which can cut across a variety of market segments in healthcare like how we did. So we designed and built features to make it agnostic to the specialization. What we now call as mass customization, which is building a flexible product to serve multiple segments. And this breadth became our long-term differentiator. So eventually, we were able to move up the chain and then go towards the larger facilities, but that took a while. Uh, so it took some time for this innovation to fuse into that market space.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
I've got one question about the market in general. So there's a lot of excitement around healthcare at the moment, especially with the influence of generative AI. And also you were seeing like pattern recognition, some really expansive models that are being used. I think one classic example was they're saying that some analysis can be more accurate than 10 doctors put together, for example. So there's a lot of hype around the sector. Where do you see that heading? Do you think it's a bit of a short-term bubble, or do you think that the industry is really ripe for a lot more technological innovation?
The latter. So I feel the industry is ripe for innovation for various reasons. I think for me, the main motivator in this market space is how to reduce the burnout of providers. So provider burnout is a real thing, whether you're a physician or a nurse or anybody working in the health system.
So
You're working,
burnout providers, you mean the people that work in the industry, in the sector themselves, people?
yeah. So they are getting burned out like anything because patient care in general is very hard. But there's a huge shortage of staff supply, and there's a huge demand growing for healthcare.
Yeah.
Patients want more and more time spent with them, but the healthcare system is not in a position to scale up. And
My wife can
technology,
testify for that because my wife's a dietitian here in the Netherlands, and she can testify that her calendar is packed in every single day, and she has a waiting
absolutely.
list of about 6 months. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Same with my wife too. She's also a physician. So it is, if you say 15 minutes of a physician's time in a day, you're done like a miracle. Okay. So
yeah.
that is, so that was,
So your wife will
so,
love you forever if you save her 15 minutes a day.
right. Yeah, that has been always my motto. So basically, build a product which will make the life of, people working in healthcare a little bit simpler, save them some time.
Yeah.
And I think AI is a wonderful tool to enable that. Uh, so both in terms of the technology which is emerging, like ambient listening, taking notes for the patient doctor conversation, summarizing patient records. So even in the archival space, we recently did a survey of healthcare IT providers, and almost like 75% agree that AI can play a huge role in the data archival space because there is so much of data. It's like the estimate for 2025 healthcare data is like 10 zettabytes of data will be generated just this year alone. So, which is
Wow.
like a huge number, like almost like one fifth of the number of stars in the galaxy. So, So, yeah, and in healthcare, you need to retain 10 years of data from the past, right? So it's not just this year's data you need to worry about, but everywhere, all the previous 10 years as well. So AI has a major role to play for sure.
Do you think then, looking back, like I'm just curious then about the ten years of we need to unpick this, Vince. The 10 years of data that you need to go back for one particular patient in order to make some good analysis. Is that what's needed?
The 10 years is the minimum mandated requirement for data retention. So, for example, if I go to my provider and then I say, hey, I had this surgery 8 years ago, I want to see the surgery notes. The provider is supposed to produce it. He might have moved to the provider might have installed a new system 2 years ago. It doesn't matter, right? You still have to produce a 8-year-old surgery note if the patient is demanding that. It could be the patient, it could be the patient's attorney, or it could be the insurance company asking for it. So the 10 years is mandated by CMS and HIPAA and other regulatory authorities. But nowadays, people keep it for much longer than 10 days. Like
Yeah.
you want it for the AI model training as well, right? So, it makes sense to keep the data much longer.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and so I want to take a side route for a moment with Triyam because what I think is so interesting. We've talked a little bit about webinars and the value of that, but one of the other things, I mean, given that it's a marketing show here, I've noticed so many other things that you're doing with content. When you look at the whole site, the whole company, I mean, articles, case studies, testimonials, and then for you, I mean, I know you've had some experience in other ways with podcasting and writing. So, just how do you value beyond the marketing and everything you've been able to build and accomplish there? What's been your overall approach to the other kinds of content and how you build relationships and sell in modern business?
Yeah, I think it is a very crowded market space with so many vendors trying to, make a mark. So it is uh, very important that we do thing well. So we do. I think webinars are important, but people don't have time for webinars. Typical registration rate is like the attendance rate is only 50% of registration, right? So you need to also do some blog posts. You need to create white papers. Uh, need to invite providers about case studies and talk with them and share the information. So although it is a crowded market space and there are so many industry conferences, the knowledge dissemination on new technology or existing solutions is very hard in this space. So it is important that a provider listens to other providers talk about what worked for them and what did not work. So any discussion or blog post or webinar in that area.
I mean, we're big in the video space, and I can say something for sure because we've had some really fascinating chats with like companies in the health tech space, like Oaken, and also Humor as well. That to me, there's a video piece missing that's educational, but also to a broader audience. And I don't know if you agree with that or not, but it certainly fulfills to me like that there would be people that would benefit from video podcast or YouTube channel where it's like, hey, this is how this works, and this is how it affects you as a consumer, and if you're a B2B buyer, this is how it affects you too. That's something that has come up a lot recently. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think when people see something visually, it appeals a little bit more than just the audio portion of it or the written text. So yeah, I think the video portion definitely helps. And when they see somebody like them, like somebody in their profession, talk about their day-to-day lives and their language, it helps a lot. They can relate to it much better.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up was like, how do clinical trials really work in healthcare? And like, you could also do, how do clinical trials work? And then how does data influence for that? Right. And then some bigger companies, they wouldn't ever do that because they're not allowed to talk about those sort of things. But its disruptors could maybe say, yeah, we're going to talk about this in the show today. I always thought there was a cool opportunity there.
Sure, yeah.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Great. So maybe you can tell us a few stories about, the journey of being an entrepreneur. So are there any things that you wish you could do again? And are there any things that you're really proud of that you say, yeah, as an entrepreneur, I did that well, I ticked that box?
Sure, yeah. So there is one thing which I would really like to not spend time on is spending time on fundraising, which was
Okay.
so I was not very successful at that. It's a high opportunity cost to not do it. Uh, but if capital is not your constraint in terms of building a business, then don't waste your time on it. Is my advice.
Right.
Uh,
Did you have to fundraise, by the way? Did you have to do it? Do you feel?
no, I did completely bootstrap. We were
Yeah.
cash positive, good in cash, and then we were just chugging along. So but I did spend a lot of time in trying to fundraise, which I think we probably wasted a lot of effort there, pitching
Yeah.
to angels and VCs and, preparing PowerPoints and brochures and things. So I wish if I had known better to spend.
It's a drain, right? It's a drain. Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yeah. It's like a full-time job. You need to spend a lot of effort on. What I'd love to repeat is team building. I think you form a strong foundational team. Uh, is reduce your unemployment. So here again, it was not a perfect, didn't nail it on day one. Many team members. Once they were there, it is such a pleasure to work with them because they would deplete all the activities, meetings, stuff that innovating low-cost solutions, the fierce debates in meetings. So all of that, I allowed to speak.
So what's your process for determining team? Like when you're going to build people, what do you look for?
Yeah, I think my motto is very different from what VC would tell you. Okay, so the VC will typically tell you, go hire the A players in the market. My motto is more focused on people's attitude. So they can do wonders with ordinary people. We can deliver extraordinary results with ordinary people is my motto. As long as they are committed and they are, sincere on the job, we can get that done.
Yeah.
And I think it is more practical also. Like how many players you are going to find them? We're going to find them, and why would they join you? Your startup. So those are the real challenges in hiring A players. So I was very fortunate because many of my team members came from my past lives where they worked with me, they liked the way I worked, and then they were willing to take a risk and gave me a chance to work with them again. So I was very fortunate that way.
And completely agree with that for what it's worth. I mean, for my whole background, so I started in radio. I was doing sports radio for 10 years, funny enough. And I had no experience whatsoever. I started as a guy that would spin the wheel and hand out T-shirts at like outside of baseball games. That was what I did. And I got the opportunity eventually to start doing other things around the station. And so they would give me these new jobs in the promotions department, or I started engineering shows. So then I was making sure all the music played and the commercials and screening phone calls. And like I ended up basically living at the station. And they respected that. And for them to give me, they kept giving me more opportunities because I kept putting in the work. And that allowed me to develop in a way that, I mean, most people, especially in a big city, so I'm in Philadelphia, and it's a very competitive station. A lot of people would kill to be there. That was a career-making kind of place. But I worked my way in from the bottom, and it was just they were willing to give me a shot because I was willing to show up every day and try to get better.
Yeah, and you imagine your boss from his perspective or her perspective, you're a gift, right? Like there are very few people who are willing to take on more work and accomplish that. So they're like, it's like you're my secret weapon kind of thing.
That's right. It's a new co-host, new secret weapon on the show. Like we're bringing a lot of things to the table here. But it's totally true.
I love the T-shirt story. Started out giving out T-shirts and then build it up. Yeah, it's true. I think there's a relatively famous entrepreneur, very well known in the UK. Well, maybe a little bit controversial because he was a very straight talker. But Alan Sugar said that he doesn't want the smartest people. He not necessarily like the A players like you're talking about, right? But they've got to be able to commit, work hard, and be enthusiastic. Because when excuse my French, but when the shit hits the fan, you need a strong team to pick it all together, right? And it sounds like that's what you've built, Sudhakar. You built a strong team. So when you have a great day, you can, enjoy that. But also when it's tough, you can work through the hard times as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We've come to the end of the show, I'm afraid. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us today. I feel like I've learned something, which is a compliment because I do a lot of podcasts. So
yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity for allowing me to share some of my thoughts. I appreciate it very much, and thank you, Justin, and Vince. Good luck to you on your upcoming shows in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.